Oh, oh, now. Shalom. Welcome back. Reading with Shiloh. Shiloh. Moucher. Moucher. We about to get back at it today. There we go. We're gonna get back at it on the real side by Mel Watkins. Mr. Mel Watkins doing his thing. We are I don't want to say we're on the downslope of the book. And we are starting chapter 11, folklore and street humor. If you grinning, you in them. Jack Johnson. I guess that's who said that. For Jack Johnson. We're going to read section 1. Section 1 today. It's quite a few pages. I mean, about 4 or 5 pages. Folklore, chapter 11 of On the Real Side. An African-American, a history of African-American comedy from slavery to Chris Rock. On the Real Side by Mr. Mel Watkins. Chapter 11, folklore and street humor. To most Caucasians, the notion of jokes by Negroes lampooning whites comes somewhat as a surprise. Yet, as an actuality, such humor may outdate its white counterpart. John H. Burma. You know, the greatest Negro humor is in the Negro home, not on the stage. When it comes to our humor, the white man is our greatest clown. Dick Gregory. Mr. Dick Gregory. Niggas just have a way of telling you stuff and not telling you stuff. Martians would have a difficult time with niggas. They be translating words, saying a whole lot of things underneath you, all around you. That's our comedy. Section 1. Authentic folktales, ballads, and toasts collected and published by folklorists both documented an important part of African American oral history and provided the most accurate and revealing mainstream exposure of Black street humor up until the mid-20th century. A few of these collections, most notably Zora Neale Hurston's Mules and Men. You might have to see what that is. What is Mules and Men? Most notably, Zora Neale Hurston's Mules and Men went beyond mere enumeration of isolated tales and described the circumstances in which they were repeated. With regard to humor, those collections are the most informative since they document the organic interplay among the participants, revealing the introductory remarks, audience responses, and digressive commentary that accompanied the tales. This textured depiction not only more clearly exposed the front stage humorous direction of the tales, but also unmasked their real-life application. Their underlying or background function as moral instructives and coded expressions of outrage at actual grievances. Still, printed descriptions rarely capture the complexity of any oral humor. The grassroots outpourings of tales, proverbs, and jokes offer the most legitimate examples of any group's distinctive humorous expression. The problem is anthropologists and folklorists Alan Dunn's notes is that the very nature of esoteric humor is such as to make it extremely difficult for anyone outside the culture even to collect texts, much less understand them. The task was made more formidable by African Americans' continued suspicion of white Americans' motives, which is, I think, is very well due. And the consequent widespread use of secrecy, subterfuge, and a mask of accommodation when dealing with whites. Despite these evasions, select examples of black folk humor began surfacing on stage through minstrelsy and in literature quite early in American life. Usually, these humorous tidbits represented what Ralph Ellison called prefabricated Negroes, superimposed upon the Negro community. But even when not willfully distorted or misinterpreted, the material typically adopted by non-black performers and writers and established in popular culture was selected because it offered surface confirmation of stereotypes cherished by whites. In laughing on the outside, let's see, I might have to see what that is. Laughing on the outside. The Intelligent White Readers, Guides to Negro Tales and Humor, Philip Sterling writes, Negro stories about themselves are one of the original sources of the derogatory anti-Negro stereotype, which has flourished for 150 years. True enough, but from Stephen Fetchin's World's Laziest Man caricature and Manton Moreland's fleet-footed exits when facing danger, the near libellous, let's see what that word is, libellous. Sonny, I am reading On the Real Side by Mel Watkins. It's a history of African-American comedy from slavery to Chris Rock. That's what I'm reading, Sonny. And as I read, some of these words, man, I stumble on and I mess up and I don't even know what they are. Really, I don't know what they are. So if this is your first time here, what I try to do is look up the words that I come across that I don't know. So I feel like I'm pronouncing this wrong. So, the word I'm looking is libellous. Libellous. Libelous. Libellous. I think I'm pronouncing it right. I don't know. Let's see. And I do mine the old school way. Sometimes I include Google. But, man, I got my Google. But, yeah. So I'm going to dip in my Google. Libellous, Libelous, to try to understand. Libellous, libel, there we go, libellous, right there. Libel, one of the adjectives, libellous. To make a false or malicious statement about. Libellous. Let me see. True enough, but from Stephen Fetchin's World's Laziest Man caricature and Manton Moreland's fleet-footed exits when facing danger to the near malicious statements or to the near false statements of verbal sparring between blacks, or the near libellous, that makes sense now, near libellous statements, or as it says, libellous, to make false or libel, it comes from libel, published statement, photograph, etc., that without due cause has the result of bringing its subjects into disrepute. So, or libeling, libelled, libellous. Make false and malicious statements, near false and malicious verbal statements sparring between blacks and males, black males and females. Libelous. True enough, but from Stephen Fetch's World's Laziest Man caricature and Manton Moreland's fleet-footed exits when facing danger to the near libelous verbal sparring between black males and females on sitcoms in the 70s and 80s. The mainstream media have most often missed the point of black-inspired humor by presenting it out of context. African Americans' humor, like that of other ethnic groups, varies widely, ranging from rural to urban and lower class to middle class. It includes social satire and ridicule of those outside the group, as well as self-critical lampooning of its own members. Focus on the last of these, and the disinclination or inability to discern its often double-edged or ironic nature partially accounts for the preponderance of the negative humor that appeared in mainstream literature and theaters. Even when African American entertainers and writers began presenting their own versions of black folk humor, however, there were major barriers. The blunt, often profane street vernacular in which folk humor was frequently couched, often an integral part of the style and meaning of the tales or jokes presented, was not tolerated in popular culture before the 1960s. And in an attempt to project a positive image in mainstream culture, the black middle class imposed further obstacles by publicly denouncing theatrical or literary humor that, although genuine, depicted blacks in a seemingly unflattering manner or exposed supposedly backward or unrefined customs to outside scrutiny. In addition, most critical social or racial commentary was to a certain extent internally restrained by the entertainer's observance of rituals and sense of propriety, sense of propriety regarding the use of ridicule. Within the black community, verbal ridicule was an accepted, indeed an expected activity. You got to get your jokes on, baby. When exited outside one's immediate circle in that community, however, it was usually seen as a direct challenge or prelude to violence. External restraints or on discarding the mask of naivety and accommodation and revealing the satirical underside of black humor were even more clear-cut. Performers who overstepped Don't start tripping on my nine. Performers who overstepped the vague line between acceptable comedy and ridicule of white society, or even attained a level of celebrity considered too grandiose for a Negro, exposed themselves to physical reprisal. W.C. Handy's report of the need to assume a servile, minstrel-like position, even off stage in many cities, Williams and Walker's W.C. Handy's report of the need to assume a servile, minstrel-like posture, even off stage in many cities. Williams and Walker's unfortunate meeting in the group of redneck ruffians who stripped them and ran them out of the southern town, and the incendiary extortions of to get Ernest Hogan, Williams, and Walker, and Cole, and Johnson during the New York City riots of 1900, all demonstrate the life-threatening encounters that frequently awaited Negro entertainers, or any African American who overstepped the bounds of society's unyielding stereotypes. So it is a small wonder that black comedians were cautious in expanding the range and thrust of their routines. They probably took note of the tagline to a familiar story concerning the reaction of an integrated group of workers to an attractive young white woman who walks past. A Negro murmurs, "Lord, will I ever?" Undeterred, the Negro says, "Long as there's life, there's hope." To which the white workers respond, "Yes, as long as there's a nigger, there's a rope." They on that ball. They gonna hang that ball. Within the black community, however, humor was free of these externally imposed restrictions. It sometimes focused on actual negative situations that were part of day-to-day reality. The above joke, for example, is attributed to blacks, but inside black humor was more often assertively pro-black. Most often, it simply ignored whites. In fact, contrary to social scientists such as Gunmer Myrdal, who insisted that most Negro humor was reactive, shaped by a desire to please whites or avoid punishment, or others who claimed Negroes were humorous only in the naive or unintended sense. Humor was and still is as prominent and richly expressive of a part of black cultural life as music. Yet humor seldom reveals itself to objective anthropological and sociological inquiry. Humor is found on contradiction and, as Freud pointed out, by its very nature responds to an upsurge of unconscious, often repressed motives and desires. It distorts the rationale and evades most logical decoding, and is often amusing because, as Langston Hughes suggested, it is what it is not. Moreover, its intended meaning can be switched instantly by subtle shifts in its gesture's intent. When it is viewed in the context of African American culture, which has been described by some as double-edged, indirect, and ambivalent, and not yielding meaningful answers to the positivist who is preoccupied with surface phenomena, humor becomes even more difficult to define. Moreover, up until the 60s, most blacks resisted divulging anything even remotely significant about the nature of their primitive humor to whites or even black outsiders. The Richard Pryor epigraph at the beginning of this chapter alludes to the kind of obfuscation. Let's see what that is. Obfuscation. To the kind of obfuscation. That's right. Obfuscation. 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 What is an obfuscation? Excuse me. Ob, 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 OBF, OBF. It's not in here. Obfuscation is not in here. Let's try the big one. So this one was, what's the other one? What am I using? a new Webster's dictionary from 1993. It was copywritten in 1993. And I'm also using a collegiate dictionary, Merriam-Webster's Collegiate Dictionary, 10th edition. Copywritten in 1999. Obfuscation. OB. Obfuscation. I wonder what it means. Now, I already looked this shit up. Obfuscate. Obfuscate or obfuscation. To make obscure. Confuse. Obfuscation, obfuscatory. 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 Obfuscation. Obfuscatory. Obfuscatory. Obfuscate. 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 Obfuscation. Obfuscatory. To make obscure, to confuse. The Richard Pryor's epigraph at the beginning of this chapter alludes to the kind of confusion or obfuscation, obfuscation, to confuse, obfuscate, to confuse likely, or alludes to the kind of confusion or obfuscation likely to be encountered by outsiders. In the introduction to Mules and Men in 1935, Zora Neale Hurston describes the reason for and method of the evasiveness. The white man is always trying to know into somebody else's business. All right, I'll set something outside the door of my mind for him to play with and handle. He can read my writings, but he sure can't read my mind. Then I'll say my say and sing my song. The pitfalls notwithstanding, by 1881, Joel Chandler Harris has made inroads with the retelling of animal tales collected from Georgia slaves in Uncle Remus. His songs and sayings, despite his disavowal of the tales, underlining satire and subsequent debates over whether they had an African source, he had introduced and memorialized a body of genuine folk humor. Harris, as one commentator suggests, may have fitted the hate-imbued folk materials into a framework, the white man's framework of love, in order to make them more palatable to mainstream readers. But he also initiated a still expanding interest in Black folklore. By the 20th century, folk collectors had discovered the slave tales of John and his master. I think I need to see that. What is that? I need to look for that. The folklore, by the 20th century, folk collectors had discovered the slave tales of John and his master. A spat of tales that, according to the folklorist Richard M. Dorson, provides the most engaging theme in American Negro folklore. Slave had discovered the slave tales of John and his master. A spat of tales that, according to the folklorist, I'm about to see what that is. A spat of tales that, according to the folklorist Richard M. Dorson provides the most engaging theme in American Negro folklore. Like the animal stories introduced by Harris, that John and the Old Master tales reflect the trickster motif. These tales never matched the popularity of the Remus tales for mainstream audiences. However, the portrayal of the slave outsmarting his master was simply not acceptable to most non-blacks. According to one folklorist, John's adventures remain among the least discussed. Stories in American folklore. By the 1920s, a few African Americans entered the field. Arthur Huff Fawcett, and Zora Neale Hurston, among the first, were followed by J. Masson Brewer and Darrell Cumber Dance. Their emergence marks the first time when the story lore of African Americans and in the United States was collected in a manner that might place the lore in the context of people's everyday life. In fact, Hurston was one of the few collectors to have lived in a community in which she gathered her material. She depicted not only the folk tales, but also the living environment and actual circumstances in which they were related. Mules and Men documented Hearst's return to her Eatonville, Florida hometown and her interactions with the raft of colorful locals, including Bubba Mims, Sack Daddy, Johnny May, and Dick Sweet. The tales told by these and other characters present a wide range of rural African American folk humor. There are examples of the rhymes, legends, songs, and animals and John and Jack tales that are found in most collections of Black folklore. But here, instead of being arranged categorically and given a detached anthropological cast, they emerge as aspects of the day-to-day amusement of the people who retell them. Like the songs and banter that usually precede or accompany them, they are revealed as an integral part of Black life. The integral part of Black life, part of Black rural life. My bad. Yes, sir. Can I shoot the slingshot? No, sir, you cannot shoot the slingshot right now. Not right now. What do you need to shoot the slingshot? Do you have ammo? What kind of ammo are you going to use? The ant balls. Not no ant. I said egg balls. The egg balls. Not no egg balls. The chicken balls. Or the China balls, the chicken balls. You have to get them. And right now, I don't think you're tall enough to reach the ones that you need to reach to be able to get them. So, no, sir, not right now. You cannot shoot the slingshots right now. Later, I'll let you shoot it later as long as it's not raining. Oh, bop, bop, bop. The tales told by these and other characters present a wide range of rural African American folk humor. There are examples of the rhymes, legends, songs, and animals, and John or Jack tales that are found in most collections of Black folklore. But here, instead of being arranged categorically and given a detached anthropological cast, they emerge as aspects of the day-to-day amusement of the people who retell them. Like the songs and banter that usually precede or accompany them, they are revealed as the integral part of Black rural life. Initially, Hurston encouraged the outpouring of tales by sponsoring lying contests. Once she was accepted, however, the stories flowed at social gatherings as easily as at the homemade spirits, as easily as the homemade spirits consumed by the liars. John tales were most popular. A. Love to hear about old Massa and John. John Show was one smart nigga. One informant said, and the collection is filled with traditional tales in which the folk hero either intentionally outwits his master or accidentally gains the upper hand. Man, I need to find this book, man. That thing sounds like it's going to be a funny one right now. John tells, what's her name? Hurston. Mules and Men. Let's write that down. Let's write that down. Of Mules and Men by Hurston. Mules and Men by Hurston. Oh, John Show was one smart nigga, one informant said, and the collection is filled with traditional tales in which the folk hero either intentionally outwits his master or accidentally gains the upper hand. In one story, old Massa has decided to hang the uppity John, but John tells another slave to climb to the top of the tree and light a match each time he hears John ask to let it lighten. When Massa takes John to the tree, John asks to pray before he dies. So John says, "Oh Lord, if you're gonna destroy old Massa tonight with his wife and children and everything he got, let him see it lightning." When Massa takes John to the tree, let it lighten. Shit. The other slave lights the match, and old Massa says, "John, don't pray no more." But John repeats the prayer, and again, the other slave lights the match. After the third time, old Massa starts to run. He gave John his freedom and a heap of land and stock. He runs so fast that it took an express train running at the rate of 90 miles an hour in 6 months to bring him back. And that's how niggas got their freedom today. In another, John convinces Master that he can tell fortunes. When they stop at the neighboring plantation, old Master mentions John's talent. The other plantation owner says, "That nigga can't tell no fortune." Oh man, that nigga can't tell no fortunes. Bet my plantation and all my niggas against yours that he can't tell no fortunes. John's Massa accepts the bet, and the next day they return. Meanwhile, the neighboring plantation owner had gone out and caught a coon and had a big old iron wash pot turned down over it. Old Massa brought John out and told him, "See, John, if you tell what's under that wash pot, I'll make you independently rich. If you don't, I'm going to kill you because you'll make me lose my plantation and everything I got. John walked round and round that pot, but he couldn't get he couldn't get the less inkling of what was underneath it. Drops of sweat as big as your fist was rolling off John. At least at last he gave up and said, well, I'm gone, the old coon at last. Well, you got the old coon at last. When John said that, old master jumped in the air and cracked his heel twice before he hit the ground. That man that was betting against old master fell to his knees with the coldest sweat pouring off of him. Old master said, John, you done won another plantation for me. That's a coon under that pot, sure enough. So he gave John a new suit of clothes and a saddle horse. And John quit telling fortunes after that. I bet you did, John. Shit. Oh, man. Numerous other John tales, including one in which John takes on mythical status and proves that he is the king of the world by physically besting a grizzly bear and a lion, are interspersed with trickster animal stories, tales about creation and the origin of specific animals, stories of flagrantly ignorant slaves and bogus preachers, often followed by the maxim, my race, but not my taste, and tales of superhuman feats by legendary blacks such as a Big 16, who was banished from heaven because he was too powerful. Among the latter is a story about three men vying for the hand of a beautiful young girl. The girl's father cannot decide which is the best suitor. So he says, y'all be here tomorrow morning at daybreak and we'll have a contest, and the one that can do the quickest trick can have the girl. As the story goes, the winner took his high-powered rifle and went out into the woods about 7 to 8 miles until he spied a deer. He took aim and fired. Then he ran home, run round behind the house and set his gun down, and then run back out in the woods and caught the deer and held him till the bullet hit him. In Hearst's collection, such imaginative descriptive comments as damn, that don't sound right. In Hearst's collection, such imaginative descriptive comments as A, been struggling in your moral vineyards, but ain't gathering no grapes. A been struggling in your moral vineyards, but A ain't gathering no grapes. Or they sun was so hot till the grindstone melted and run off on the shade to cool off, amplifying the humor, as do asides such as, well, as long as you don't see no man, weed their mouth cut up and down. You know they was all lying just like the rest of us. Man, some of that shit, some of that backwoods talk, man. Hurry up so somebody else can plow up literature and lay down some alphabets. Perhaps most revealing, The interchanges usually take the form of topping and caping the other participants. A round of quips about how hot it is, for example, progresses from "it was so hot till we saw old stumps and logs crawling off in the shade" to "it was so hot till two cakes of ice left the ice house and went down the street and fainted." When the commentary turns to stories about the biggest mosquitoes, jobs escalate from "a mosquito came along and ate up the cow and was ringing the bell for the calf" to "that's what's no full-grown mosquito," and the tale of mosquitoes that sang like bull alligators and screwed off them short bills, reached back in the hip pockets. Now, let me read that again. That wasn't a full-grown mosquito, and a tale of mosquitoes that sang like bull alligators and screwed off them short bills, reached back in their hip pockets and took out their long bills and screwed them on and came right on through them blankets and gauze. Often when the competition heated, the sessions veered into bouts of good nature signifying and verbal snipping such as "you so black," till they have to throw a sheet over your head so they can rise every morning. "You so black," till they have to throw a sheet over your head so the sun can rise every morning. I know your mama cried when she seen you. Because these tales were usually presented with thematic continuity, Hurston's method also frequently clarified the humorous intent of the stories. Not surprisingly, folk tales taken out of context and analyzed in isolation often prove puzzling to readers and analysts alike. In the essay Negro Humor, John and the Old Master, for example, the folklorist Harry Ostrom recounts a story in which John is tricked by his master. In the tale, John's master, after discovering that John prays under the oak tree every day, puts his two sons in the tree with a sack of stones. When John prays, give me religion, Lord, give me religion. Drop something on my head. Let me feel it. One of the boys drops a stone on his head. And when John implores, drop a little harder, the boy drops a great big old stone and knocks John out. When old John come back to, he said, "Look." He looked up to the air. He said, "Jesus, that the way you got to give me religion? Knock me out. Take your religion on back to heaven. I'm gonna stay down here and do the best I can. Please now." Oyster classifies the tales as one in which the Negro is the ridiculous butt of a joke and asks, why do Negroes laugh at this story, which makes one of them appear such a fool? The butt of the old master's sadistic joke at the expense of John's literal faith in God's intervention in his affairs. He speculates that the story may be funny to blacks because most people enjoy laughing at the idiocies of an inferior member of their group, and paraphrasing Thomas Hobbes suggests that the humor may arise from a sudden happy fulfillment of their own need for a sense of superiority. He also considers that the tale may direct elements of sophisticated satire against the old-fashioned stereotype of naive Negro who is gullible enough to have an intense religious faith and may be the product of the creative intelligence of sophisticated cynical observer. Excuse me, who may be the product of the creative intelligence of a sophisticated cynical observer. Had the tale been placed in context and the storyteller's point of reference been made clear, such speculation may not have been necessary. The story is more likely connected to a strain of cynicism regarding Christianity that surfaced early in African American slavery experience. Numerous instances of slaves' resistance to accepting a white God are found in slave narratives and in the writings of slaveholders. Now, Charles Eliot's The New England History 2 in 1857, for example, included the following anecdote. One of my reverend ancestors found his Negro cuff bowing and mumbling before a rough god that he had made out of stone. "What's this, Cuff?" he said sharply. Cuff at last answered, "White man still nigger. Nigger know like white man's God. Cuff make his own God, and then he know him." And in 1920s, after intensive field work among rural Southern blacks, sociologist Newbell Niles Puckett wrote, albeit patronizingly, that race pride hangs pictures of heaven, dust with black angels in many lowly Negro cabins, and buys Bibles containing pictures of the same angels. The folktale analyzed by Oyster, similar to a tale recorded in Mules and Men, that concludes with the slaves awakening to say, "Lord, I asked you to kill all them white folks. Can't you tell the white man from a nigger?" Is more likely a satiric expression of a not insignificant suspicion among blacks that white Christianity is a hoax. If so, it has some affinity with the type of double-edged wit found in the familiar "Where do Negroes hang out around here" joke that, although John's gullibility, many contribute to the humor. The story is funny because it is information. It is because of its affirmation of white hypocrisy and the indirect lampooning of Christianity. It corresponds to mainstream blacks or gallows humor, which turned the most appealing circumstances into comedy, which turned the most appalling circumstances into comedy. In Hearst's collection, the story appears within the sequence of tales that satire white America's devious use of religion and focus on the difference between appearance and reality in spiritual encounters. Hearst's collection avoids most of the speculation about why Negroes laugh at special tales, since the intent of many stories is spelled out in conversations that precede them. Broadly, the tales can be categorized as trickster tales, in which John or Briar Rabbit usually triumph through their own wit. Ideologic, or how it happens tales. Let's see what that word is. Ideologic. I don't know what the word is. Ideologic. Broadly, the tale can be categorized as trickster tales, in which John or Brer Rabbit usually triumph through their own wit. Etiologic. Etiologic. E-T-I-O. E-T-I-O-L-O-G-I-C. Etiologic. Etiologic. Etio, if I'm pronouncing. Etiologic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm trying to see if I don't be able to spell that on Scrabble. Etiologic. E-T-I-O. E-T-I-O. E-T-I. 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 It's not in here. Checking this one. E-T. E-T phone home. Etiologic is what I'm looking for. E-T-I-O-L-O-G-I-C. Etiologic. I think that's how you pronounce it. E-T-I-O-E-T-I. E-T-I. There you go. Etiology. Etiology. Etiological. I mean, etiologic. 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 Of or relating to etology. Etology, maybe etology. Etology, let's see what etology is. Etology. All of the causes of a disease, the etology. I think that's what it is, etology. Or abnormal condition. Branch of knowledge concerned with causes, etology. Etologic. 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 The etologic or how it happened tales, which display the narrative's cleverness at embellishing or concocting stories about the origins of various things, including heaven, hell, and the world, as well as specific animals and races. Tales that poke fun at such Negro pecados or as laziness or ignorance. Tales that humorously exaggerate the physical prowess of blacks. Let me look at that other word too. Pecados. Peccadilloes. I think that's what it is. Pecados. I'll come back to it. Tales that humorously exaggerate the physical prowess of blacks and overwrite lies, which depend on the narrator's wit, the imagination, and storytelling ability in creating far-fetched, circuitous accounts of everyday events. Noticeably absent from the collection, however, are examples of hostility or bitter satire. That omission led Sterling Brown to write that the picture is too pastoral, with only a bit of grumbling about hard work, or a few slave anecdotes that turned the tables on old master. There are, in fact, numerous stories of slaves turning the tables and outwitting old master, but no example of the more aggressive, bad nigga tales that by the late 20s have begun to emerge in blacks, urban folk humor, and humor. The rural setting of mules and men partially explains the omission. Still, Hurston, who had lived in New York City and doubtlessly aware of them, their absence gives her book a parochial, localized cast, parochial, P-A-R, parochial, P-A-R-O-C-H-I-A-L, P-A-R-O-C-H-I-A-L, parochial. A parochial, let's see, P-A, Barack Obama. P-A-R-O. Parochial. Relating to a parish, narrow, provincial, narrowness of opinions. Parochial. I see. It's not going to stand up long though. In her book, A Parochial, Localized Cast. On the other hand, the fairy tales. Yes, sir. What is it? A what? Is it a pattern? I don't see the pattern. The orange, yes, sir. The orange ones are a pattern, but the pattern should go. If it's going to be a pattern, then you should go like this: orange, yellow, orange, red. Orange, yellow, orange, red. Orange, yellow, orange, red. That would be the pattern. On the other hand, the folk tales that Hurston collected in rural Eatonville clearly just demonstrate that much African American humor was neither overly concerned with or excessively focused on the mainstream white world. Except for slave stories, the tales offered by Hurston's informants concentrate primarily on the insular black world in which they lived. Although folk collections from other rural areas offer similar material, none evokes the competitive tenor and the unique manner in which the Negro farthest down expresses himself or spreads his own junk in his own way more vividly than mules and men. And that was section 1. That was section 1 of chapter 11 of On the Real Side, man. I'm gonna have to look up this damn Mules and Men book. Mules and Men. I'm gonna have to look it up at the thrift bookstore. Mules and Men. Man. Well, we got to come back, man. You got to come back and finish up. We are almost done. I think, man, we are almost done with the book. Chapter 11 has 1, 2, 3. And 3 is long. 3 is a long section. 11 has 3 sections. Then we got chapter 12. Damn, chapter 12 is going to be long. Chapter 11, we're not going to take long for chapter 11. Chapter 12 is going to be long. Chapter 13 is prior and thereafter. That one might be good. Yep. Got 2 chapters left. 12 and 13. Chapter 12 and chapter 13. So honestly, this is about, let me do like this. This is what we have left to finish the book. And then I can put me another notch. Ow! I'm gonna hit me another notch on my bookmark. Man, yeah, but that's what it is, man. So far, so good. We're gonna keep pushing. We're gonna keep pushing through one book at a time, one chapter at a time, one section at a time, line upon line. Here, little, there, little baby. You know, SHILO, man, we out here. We out here. We're gonna be out here. We're gonna keep pushing, keep trying to learn something, keep trying to grow and see where we go. Ooh. What can we achieve? What can we achieve? You can do it, baby. You can do it. I'm definitely reading a lot better than what I was reading, you know, when I first started. Even though I took that long break, I wasn't trying to. Time just flew, man. Time been moving. Time on that flash. Time is on the flash. This is not what it is. Denzel, time is not on our side. Time ain't on your side. Oh no, it ain't. So get up, do what you gotta do. Take advantage of the time you do have. Read something, learn something, do something, put some action into something. Make better habits than what you might have already. You know, start something new. Man, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it, man. You can do it. Yeah, but till next time, man. Till next time, you know, we'll get with you. SHILO out.